आइए बरखा जी
मैम सेंटर।
मैम लोग सेंटर में ना सेंटर
मैडम एकदम सामने।
मैम सेंटर।
मैम इधर देखिए
लेफ्ट में मैडम।
सी बरखा मैडम को बोलो
थैंक यू।
ठीक हो आप कैसे हो मैडम जी?
मैम सेंटर सेंटर लोग एकदम।
मैम या
मैम सेंटर लोग सेंटर।
Presenter, media producer, and the joint managing director of One Take Media. Her first book, Bedazzle, released in 2020, and the book we are here launching today is her second. Please join me in welcoming the woman of the hour, the author herself, Dr. Shamali Khera.
Thank you so much, everyone, for making it. My heart is really full seeing all of you here. I've been waiting for this day to announce and share more about this book. So thank you to each and every one of you who could make it on a Friday evening. And I can't wait to uncover this book with the wonderful panelists that we have. So let's get them on board as well.
Thank you, Shamali. So please join me now in welcoming our esteemed panelists for today, who will bring to life the various themes in this book and share their own personal stories of bringing remarkable women in their own chosen fields. Our first panelist is known for her fearless portrayal of complex characters on screen. She has proved her acting prowess in films like Pink, Indu Sarkar, Mission Mangal, Uri, Blackmail, and also OTT series like Four More Shots Please and Human. Aiming to prove her mettle with her recently opened production house, please join me in welcoming talented actor and producer, Miss Kirti Kulhari. Our next panelist is an independent director and strategic advisor. She brings with her over 30 years of experience in media and has led teams at Discovery, Star, HBO, and amongst others. Awarded as the Woman of the Decade in Media in 2018 by the World Economic Forum, please join me in welcoming the media powerhouse, Ms. Megha Tata. And our next panelist is one of India's best-known journalists and the founding editor of Mojo Story, a recipient of over 50 awards, including the Padma Shri and Global Leader for Tomorrow at the World Economic Forum. Her fearless reporting and path-breaking journalism over 25 years makes her one of the most respected names in the Indian and international media. Please join me in welcoming the extraordinary Barkha Dutt. Can I please request all our panelists to come together for the book launch and the photo op? And can we have someone hand over the copies of the books, please? Can we have a big round of applause, please, ladies and gentlemen? Letters to Daughters of Tomorrow, breaking stereotypes to unleash her potential. I'm sure each one of us in this room is very eager to know more about this book. So, Barkha, can I have you take over, please? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are you all able to hear me in the room? Okay. So just before we get started, I think it'll be much more interesting if this is interactive, if you also share your stories, if something that we speak about has resonance, if you have gone through something similar, or you don't agree at all with what the four of us are saying.
I think that's quite impossible, actually.
But well, if you would dare to disagree with us, how dare you? But more seriously, do raise your hand, and you don't actually have to wait for a formal Q&A. It'll be much more interesting if you take part in it as we are talking. So let's get started. Letters to Daughters of Tomorrow is an interesting concept because it presupposes that we can actually tell girls of another generation, hey, this is how to do it, this is what we did right, and this is what we did wrong, right? Can we, I know you're a mother to a daughter, can we actually control, guide, show the path, or does everybody have to find their own path?
So this is exactly the contradictory speech that was going in my head when I was writing this, because the book is about giving authority and agency to the girl, to the daughter, to the women of tomorrow. And then I'm like, 1 second, who are you to tell them what to do? Because the book is about give them the privilege and the freedom to choose. And but I realized the constant tone that I'm using while writing is like, this is what I feel has worked for me. It might work for you. And like I earlier said, if I can save you the 10 years of trouble of learning the same lesson that I did, I'd rather you have it from me. So, and having a daughter, yes, you can't really tell them what to do because they do have a mind of their own, and it's actually amazing that they do. But you do want to guide them or, show them what can be done.
So I want to ask all three of you the same question to start with. What is the one thing you wish somebody had told you when you were younger that you had to go through life to discover, that you kind of said, oh, I wish I'd kind of made my peace with that or understood that or learned that much earlier? I'll start with you.
A very good evening, everyone. I think the one thing that I really had a lot of trouble dealing with and making sense of and understanding throughout my life, till say about 7-8 years ago, was the fact that I was a very sensitive person, and I'm still a very sensitive person. But what I didn't know then, that I know today, is how to handle my emotions. There was a time that I almost felt sorry about the fact that I was so sensitive about everything, that everything would hurt me and everything would make me probably start crying, and I didn't have the tools or the understanding or the support from around me to really tell me that, listen, sensitivity is not the problem. The problem is to be able to handle your emotions. The EQ that we talk about, emotional, quotient, I somehow took a while to finally arrive at, okay, this is how I deal with my emotions, and this is exactly one of the things that I would like to pass on to anybody around me,
Do you think that sensitivity came from, so we had the chance to talk when we were sitting outside, and I discovered something about your life, so I'm going to, with your permission, ask you about it. Do you think that sensitivity or that heightened sense of sensitivity came from the fact that you grew up knowing that your grandmother wanted a boy? You were 3 sisters and a brother.
Yeah.
And you were the third daughter.
I'm going to cry, Barkha. No, I'm
And
just
it's
kidding.
okay.
I'm just kidding.
And guess what? I will cry with you, and it's absolutely
No.
fine. But honestly, how does it shape a child to grow up knowing that somebody in their family didn't want them?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think while, as I said, so my grandmother sort of fainted when she heard the news that I was the 3rd girl born in the family. And while others would laugh about it, like, how funny that was, of course, as a child, as you rightly said, it's very possible that it somewhere got very deep-seated in me.
Yeah.
But I think it got very, very enhanced because I was already predisposed to being sensitive. So I think my sensitivity and this thing happening to me, maybe at moments combined together, would probably bring out that or make me feel more sensitive than normal. But I don't think it's because of this. And it's very, I do believe that we as human beings, we are predisposed to certain tendencies even before we are born,
Yeah.
you know. So I think I was just one of those who was like that.
Okay, Megha,
So I think if the question to your first,
something you wish you'd known.
yeah. So well, I've had a reasonably balanced childhood with my parents. You know,
Yeah.
my father was also in the Air Force. We're 4G kids, both of us. And mum was a big influence in my life as well, and both me and my sister. So we, from a family point of view, we were always given that environment to, you can achieve the world. But when I've been in this industry for last 30 plus years now, and while when I was in that corporate space, right, very few women were there in the senior roles, and of course now you see a lot of women in the workforce, but again not enough in the C-suite levels. So for me, I think what I wish I could have learned out of or probably been guided was ask more questions. I think what I accepted what was offered. What was given was based on the fact, their assumptions of what I was worthy of or what did I deserve, but I really did not question the status quo. And I think that to me is one letter probably I'll write to my daughter, that don't just accept what's offered to you, question it and question the status quo. So I think that is probably one thing I would
That's
say.
very interesting, because we were talking about how one of the things that the most empowered, self-aware women tend to accept is to not say much about money.
You're absolutely right.
And to just say, oh, our work will speak for itself. And I can see lots of young women there nodding. So raise your hand if you're a woman who wants to talk about money but can't and thinks that your work will speak for itself. So that's, okay, so that's a whole, huh? You ask for money? Okay, that's good. A lot of us don't.
So you're absolutely right. Ask for more is also something that we should, probably tell them, because it is true that women don't negotiate as much as men. So sometimes when we are wondering why are men getting more or men getting more promotions, or also pay parity is now such a big discussion, it's also because it's been found out that men negotiate more often than women do, and women tend to accept the offers that they get. They are almost grateful. This is an amazing quality about us. We are so grateful that we have the job, we have the right guy, we have right everything. Let's not nudge the boat too much, or it might just topple. But that is where we need to tell our girls and women that if you think you deserve more, which most times you do, you must ask for more, you must negotiate more often, and zyada se zyada it may be a no, but at least you tried, and the other person knows that you're more deserving.
Now, one of the things your book talks about is a certain kind of female boss. And I'm going to push back a little bit here and encourage all of us to think a little more about this idea of the female boss. So, of course, we've seen one kind of female boss in the sort of Meryl Streep, Devil Wears Prada kind of caricature. But you argue in your book that the concept of the queen bee is real, and you argue that there are women who take on quote-unquote masculine traits because they're trying to make it in an all-male world. So I have two questions, and I'll start with you. One, in this age of gender fluidity, what is feminine and what is masculine? Our younger generation may not even understand. B, could it be that the tough female boss is judged differently from the tough male boss?
So you're absolutely right. Today we live in really different times, but I remember reading an interview, and when I was interviewing one of the bosses about 15 years back when she was offered one of the senior roles, one of the most natural things that she did is she did a shorter haircut because she didn't want to spend too much time in front of the mirror, look too feminine, and also wanted to look more practical, more work-oriented. She also switched to more masculine clothes, which could be, this whole phrase of who's wearing the pants. Somewhere, I don't know how this has gone down as a compliment. And she felt she will not be taken seriously if she doesn't adapt that, and she was not alone, because again, through research it was found out that women feel that the more aggressive, or the more these masculine traits that we take, we will appear more leader-like, because empathy yet, which is one of our strongest traits, it's not actually acknowledged, accepted, or even encouraged at workplaces. On the contrary, empathetic leaders are the future.
But let me push again, and I'd love Kirti and Megha also to come in on this. When a woman is emotional, she's called hysterical. When a man is emotional, he's called compassionate, sensitive. When a woman is
he's actually called a loser.
Okay, chalo, I was being polite. When a woman is ambitious, aggressive, some might say, oh, she's trying to be like the guys, or she's being a bitch. But when a man has exactly the same behavior, he's a tough leader. So I'm a bit confused. Why do we believe that there is a female kind of leadership and a male kind of leadership? I'm not sure I believe that. Do you?
I don't actually.
Yeah.
I think what we necessarily talk about is the yin and yang, the feminine and the masculine, which we all have within us. The Ardhanarishwar that we talk about is basically yin and yang in all of us. I think the whole point is to bring the two in balance, right? That is the ideal way of going about things and all of that. So the fight is not so much कि आप लड़की हैं, आप लड़के हैं. एक लड़की भी ऐसी हो सकती है जिसका yang बहुत strong है. Right? And vice versa. You have men who are very sensitive, who are okay to express themselves emotionally. So it is. I think this whole confusion of a man and a woman is something that I personally do not buy into a lot. It's not something that I tell myself too often. I have been an actor for 15 years now, and I've recently turned a producer. And Barkha, I have literally stepped into a world, like as an actor, actors की फिर भी अपनी एक जगह है. Female actors की एक अपनी जगह है जो they don't need to compete with male actors in that sense. But as a producer, it is a gender fluid role, right? So I am literally putting myself out there in the middle of a lot of men and few women. But I must say, not for once have I felt ki, oh, I'm a woman, I need to do this differently, I need to be a little more like this, a little more this. No, it's just, I am just allowing myself all the qualities of the yin and yang that I need to, what do you say? I need to get, like, what is the word? मतलब मुझे उस मोमेंट में जिस क्वालिटी की जरूरत है exactly and I think I have in my head I have never given too much thought to this whole idea of gender based things, and I think not that I'm not aware of it, but it's a story that I don't keep telling myself very often. I think coming from this space of just not having this at the back of my head and
frees you.
Exactly.
The lack of self-consciousness.
Yeah,
can we afford, because my job here is to be contrarian and give the opposite argument to all three of you. Can we
You're
afford,
damn good with it.
Thank you. Can we afford to always be lacking in self-consciousness? I get her point that somewhere you just want to be yourself, but sometimes it's a real battle,
So, you're taking in everyone's inputs here. I'll just talk from my own experience.
Yeah.
And having been in that space in the last 30 plus years, I've never taken decisions based on whether I'm thinking myself to be a woman or whatever the gender I am. But it's what is right for that person or that moment or for that business decision. Yeah. Now, that comes from me being an individual, an executive. I happen to be a woman. It is not because I am a woman I'm taking a certain decision. So I think fundamentally when leaders, when you think that you're a good leader or you are you have the power to be a leader, to make an impact, you need to take these decisions based on what is right for that moment, that business decision, person, people. You're a people person. That's it. Like you're in a people industry. You got to factor that in. You happen to be a man, woman, or any other gender. It doesn't matter. So I think this whole argument of whether a woman is a good leader, a male is a good leader is
But that is not the same as saying that women don't have to fight X number of times as hard or harder than men to get to the same place, and that they will be judged much more harshly. So I was once interviewing Hillary Clinton, and at that time she was Secretary of State, wanting to run for president, never managed to become president, and she told me something that always stays with me, and she said, Barkha, if you're a opinionated, independent, successful woman in the public eye, you have to have a skin as thick as the hide of a rhino.
That's true.
So do you have a skin as thick as the hide of a rhino?
I don't know yet. I'm working on it. But I think coming back to what you two said, I absolutely love your approaches, being also the yin and yang. I feel you also come from very secure places about your, your position, your authority, and the place you are at right now. So you probably don't look at that canvas as this is what I'm supposed to do, as opposed to.
But to that, Shamali, we were not there always.
Correct.
Absolutely.
We got here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the point we're trying to make here.
Yeah.
It's never going to be a walk in the park for anybody.
It could be that in your getting there, you were judged for your style of leadership, for your personality, for not
Possibly.
being soft enough, for being too hard, for not dressing a
That's
certain
where
way.
the
for
rhino
dressing
skin
a
helps.
certain way. Yeah. So that's what I want to understand, that when you speak of women embracing what you call masculine traits, are they embracing masculine traits, or are they being judged differently from men for gender neutral traits?
So what has happened is when the study was carried out, and this was what came out when the top CEOs and everyone was interviewed. Of course, not everyone is like that. There's a majority of percentage that believe they have to adopt or adapt masculine traits because they thought, for example, showing emotions, which is considered to be a feminine thing at work, might be looked down upon, or I will look like a weak leader if I share my home problems at work and stuff like that. But the book actually now argues that this is a loophole. This is not something that we must be following because actually females have stronger leadership traits than male, and it's genetically been proved and understood because there was a leadership assessment scale out of which 4 and 5 traits were matching with what women naturally have as opposed to lesser on males. So the idea is that our natural feminine traits are actually amazing for leadership roles. So why are we not there? Why are there less number of women in the top leadership roles? So it comes down to the fact that our opportunities have been much lesser, and the book specifies an Indian context society because we speak about our daughters and sons very differently, which is again another conversation.
Yeah, we will talk about what letters to our sons might look like, but I just want to explore this just a little more for a couple of minutes. There was a time when Indira Gandhi was called the only man in the cabinet, and this is because she was able to carve out Bangladesh, the 1971 war. She was a woman kind of commandeering, you're both Fauji daughters, commandeering the troops into the great 71 war and the birth of Bangladesh. Today we would not use that language, but courage associated with maleness still remains. So I want to explore this idea a little more. On the one hand, we live in an age where you identify your pronoun. Do you identify as he, she, they, and a million other entities. We talk about gender fluidity. On the other hand, we are still debating, is there a yin and yang? Is there a male and female? When younger people aren't even convinced that these are the only two genders. So it's a brave new world. So jump right in.
I mean, you cannot deny the existence of everything else that we are here for, right? But I personally feel, Barkha, that we all have, I'm going to give a very generic statement, but honestly it's the most true statement. We all have our battles to fight, walk our path. The challenges, they are very unique to all of us. So it's never, as she said, a walk in the park for anyone, right? What has really helped me, away from all the conversations around, all the conditioning, all the noise around, right? And the noise is, I don't know how many times more today with social media, right? What has really helped me is to keep connecting with myself. The only
But sometimes that's the toughest thing to do.
but that's why people don't do it. People
Yeah.
keep going out because that's easier. It's
Yeah.
easier to escape your own self.
Yeah.
I can lie to you, but I cannot lie to myself.
Yeah.
So I would rather speak to you and just make up a story
Yeah.
and make it easy for both of us, right? So personally, I mean, 100 baat ki ek baat. I have the only genuine thing I've really worked on in my life is to go home to myself. Keep asking questions, keep questioning everything that I have a question about, seek answers, and just find authenticity. And I think that's personally my weapon against everything in the world.
You know, I'm all for authenticity, but I think it's very difficult. It's what women in particular find difficult because sacrifice has been so romanticized when it comes to women. I always go to, you know, these talks and these events, and women will say, what's the one thing you'd say to us? And I'd say, I have no one to say anything to you, but there's one thing I want to say to you is be selfish. And everybody looks, what? Someone's actually said be selfish? And I'm like, I'm so tired of selfless sacrifice being romanticized when it comes to women. You know, rarely will you meet a woman who'll say, I'm here first to pursue my own happiness.
Yeah, totally. In fact, again, you know, we were talking about in the room earlier. I think it is also about how you are conditioned, okay? And the conditioning can be self-created and of course the environment. And I really strongly believe that as individual, whether man, woman or any other gender, the choices you make are the choices you make.
Yeah.
No one is making those choices for you.
Well, in our circle of privilege, there are many
Also-
women outside our circle of privilege who are not making free choices.
No, but the point is, Barkha, that there is always a choice. Now, you are deciding it you're making those decisions based on your assumptions that you have to take this for your family, your kids and whatever. But I will humbly just put this, that, you know, that it's not easy making those choices. When I have made some choices, I have not been, you know, 100% mother, 100% executive, 100% wife and
But
daughter.
nobody is
Nobody is there,
100%
right?
at anything.
No,
Yeah.
and this whole superwoman
Yeah.
nonsense which people talk
correct.
about is BS,
Yeah.
right? So I think you have to be who you are. You are the best version of yourself is what you should give your best to.
Yeah.
And what comes out of it, be happy in that choice you make. So I think that is where it doesn't then matter about the gender and the world you are sort of navigating yourself into. But authenticity, being true to yourself, and the choices you make to be happy with those choices is what I would highlight.
So to come back to, you know, the letters we would write to the daughters of tomorrow, which is the title of Shamali's book. Just a data point. There's a lot of data in this book, by the way, but I'm sharing a data about how many women in India work. I looked that up for something else I was doing, and I found that in 2024, official statistics tell you that 37% of India's women are in the workforce. But if you break that data down, you will find that most of the spikes in that number come from rural India, where women have to work. So how many women work in cities? Women like us who are educated, who have the opportunity, only 25%. Only 25% of India's women in cities are joining the workforce, okay? So I want to understand that. What is going on here? Is society holding back these women? Are they juggling too many balls? Are they losing themselves to some kind of conditioning? Let's first all be clear, we're all in different degrees products of our conditioning, men and women included, right? No judgments. What's happening here?
So there are multiple layers to this, Barkha, which is one of the reasons that pushed me to write the book, because I came across this statistic that more women are getting educated, but less are getting transpired to the workforce. So where are we losing
Tell the story about that matchmaker.
Yes. So I interviewed a couple of matchmakers, and one of them was very interesting for this book. And he stays in a very, privileged part of Mumbai, and we had a good conversation. And it's interesting to know that a lot of girls today are educated because they will make a better match tomorrow. And parents are worried कि ज़्यादा नहीं पढ़ाएंगे, ज़्यादा masters कर ले, or if she studies a lot, then getting a match for her will be tough. And I thought these are conversations that we have years back, decades back. This is like maybe a year old. And I was shocked. So what is happening is, yes, we want to glamorize education. We want to give great packages in terms of she's a well-educated, well-spoken, opinionated woman. Opinionated as long as she's within her cultural traditions and respectful and not arguing openly and all of that. And but after marriage, it's absolutely okay if the parents, if the in-laws and the husbands are okay, then she can go ahead and pursue something that is comfortable within while she's taking care of the house. And these are real conversations that are happening today. So if the woman in that society is working, it's like, it's an added bonus. She's never looked at as the primary,
the main.
Yes.
But it's important to say at this point that there is also sometimes less privileged people who give up everything that they have to give their daughter a dream. In Delhi, I'm sure you were all familiar with the Nirbhaya gang rape that happened in 2012. The father of that girl was a baggage loader at the airport in Delhi. In Calcutta, in Kolkata, where a doctor was raped and murdered at her place of work, the father and the mother are darzis. They're tailors. They've given up everything they have to give their daughter, a dream. So people are trying, but in more privileged circles, women are being, this is counterintuitive what I'm about to say, in wealthier homes, women are being held back from professional dreams in a way that they aren't being held back in lower income homes. Yes. What do you make of that? Were you ever held back?
No. My dad was rather very enthusiastic about, growing up, I studied in a Kendra Vidyalaya throughout my life. Yeah. And my dad had very simply, he would never force us to study. He would never force us to do anything. But he would, whenever I was into sports at a very early age. And he never said, khelna chhod do because padhai zaruri hai. At the same time, a lot of CCA activities happen. My dad would always encourage us saying, go and participate. It's not about winning. Go and participate, right? So I don't know where he got all these virtues from of just allowing his kids to be, but I think he has done that to the whole family. And I think he would have been actually upset if any one of us decided to sit back home and just be a housewife or something. I think tab unko takleef hoti.
Though that said, there's a whole debate about unpaid work and women at home, homemakers not being paid for their work, but again, it's a gendered role. I'd be a lot more comfortable, and I'd be interested in your opinion on this. Some organizations are moving to family leave, not maternity leave, not paternity leave, but family leave. The Supreme Court now has a creche that men and women can both bring their children to. The idea that somebody can be a homemaker in the West at least has now started extending to men. And I think that would make a lot of us more comfortable if roles were equally applicable to both genders, right? But what is holding women back from a full career? What is holding them back? Because the data tells you that something is. 25% of women in India's cities work. That's a pathetic number.
Pathetic indeed. And the sad part is that in the last 30 years, that maybe that 20 has become 25.
Yeah.
So, not one reason, Barkha. There isn't one reason. There are multitude of reasons. There are social issues. There are personal challenges, ability to take that, not having the ability to take an and life, like it's either or. Yeah. And that is not self-created, but you are in that situation. It's like a quagmire. You're just stuck. And for anyone to come out of any kind of such a situation, I'm sorry to say, but you have to take it on to yourself. No one is going to do this for you. For a lot of us here on this panel as well, nothing was given to us on a platter, right? It's not that we haven't been to our fair share of challenges. We all have come from, middle-class families. We've achieved reasonably well in our lives. So it's been a hard work, all of us. So I think a woman has to take those decisions for themselves. No one is going to take that for you. I am a big believer that there is no husband, father, children, society who will make it easy for you. No. There is no shortcut.
So why are women not able to do it? What is this quagmire?
I want to add here, the conversations that we have with our daughters and with our sons are fairly different unknowingly, unconsciously from the time they are kids. So this idea of, when a son is brought up and he knows that he is going to grow up and he has to earn, he has to get a job. Passion hai to hai, nahi bhi hai to you have to do a job, you know. As opposed to a woman is always spoken about what you like, you pursue, passion, see, matlab whatever is light, you know, these kind of conversations. Even when I was doing medicine, girls were encouraged to take dermatology and radiology because they don't have emergency calls and family bhi sambhaloge. That's a very normal conversation there. The idea that a son grows up knowing that I don't have an option, I have to grow up and run a house, while the woman or the daughter, you know, hum bolte hain princess ki tarah pala hai, and like all of those conversations is actually, it's a backlash, because we are also somewhere subconsciously inculcating that now the father is taking care, tomorrow husband will take care, it's okay, you know, if you want to. That kind of passive conversation needs to stop.
But you know, I'm glad we're talking about what led us to sons of the future, sons of tomorrow might look like. Again, to go back to the Kolkata rape and murder for just a moment. In this horrible thing that happened, two very heartening things came out of the movement for justice. One was that men were standing shoulder to shoulder with women on the streets asking for justice. Men were right there and they felt it. I interviewed so many male doctors who felt deeply about getting justice for their colleague, their friend. The other was that when it was suggested that, okay, maybe one solution is कि औरतों को night shift मत दो. Let women, you know, when you mentioned radiology and dermatology, so one of the things that was a response to this horrible thing that happened was, let's give women doctors just a 12-hour shift. This doctor who was killed had worked a 36-hour shift. All the women doctors said, no, that's not what we're asking for. And the Chief Justice of India said in the Supreme Court this week, women want equality and safety, not concessions. We are not asking for special treatment.
That's absolutely right. What they're asking for is security and the assurance that we can safely go to work.
Exactly. So let us acknowledge that just as women can be patriarchal, men can be feminist. It all depends on what your conditioning is, your upbringing is. But one of the conversations we never have is about equality at home. And my firm belief is that till you have equality at home, you can't have equality at work. And the reason that so many women drop out of the workforce is because they can't handle the absence of equality at home, but they don't want an unpleasant situation at home, and so therefore they just give up their dream. So let's talk about how equality at home impacts equality at work.
You know, earlier we were talking about how you've lost some good women producers.
Yeah.
I've lost good women staff. And these are milestones I've recognized. One is when they're getting married. One either when they're having a baby, the first or the second. And it constantly comes back to conditioning. So I always take them and have a chat and I ask them, what is it? Do you need flexible hours? I can give you that. Do you need a maternity leave? I can give you that. And it's not like that. And I'm like, is someone asking you to do it? They're like, no, they're very supportive. So I said, what is it? No, I will be a better mother when I'm home, or I will, you know, that's the conditioning and the expectation, because she's seen that, they've seen that at home. That's the ideal picture, you know. हम थोड़ी देर पहले बात कर रहे थे, what is a perfect wife, what is a perfect daughter? Nothing like that exists. But we have grown up seeing a certain type that we are trying to inculcate or be. And somewhere this is where books like these are hoping to uncondition and unlearn that conditioning in two ways. One is we want to work on the daughter's mind, and one is we want to work on the environment's mind, that these are probably the conversations that are damaging to her right now, and maybe it's time to stop.
But maybe the conversation we need to have is that we give paternity leave, we give family leave, we encourage men to go to PTA meetings, we give the flexi hours to men who also want to participate in parenting.
But that's happening.
It's slowly
That's
happening.
yeah.
It is slowly happening. But let's talk about what a letter to a son of tomorrow might look like.
You know, I personally believe, and I very strongly believe, that while we talk a lot about women being victims of patriarchy, I feel men are also victims of patriarchy, right? And that's something that we do not talk about often, right? It's something that, you know, and having said this, I'm not saying that all the conversation around feminism and equality for women are सब बातें हैं. नहीं, हम इतनी पीछे हैं कि हमें साथ में आने में वक्त लगेगा, और उसके लिए एक्स्ट्रा मेहनत हो रही है, because हम उतनी पीछे हैं. But so when I personally I feel that I actually feel this, Barkha, that when there's a child at home, you know, whether it's a male child or a female child, and you know any other genders, and जो भी अभी हो रहा है, it's there are very basic things that a child just needs to grow up with, you know. उसमें आप differentiation एक बच्चे को to understand that, oh, I am different than you, also takes 3 to 4, 5 years to realize कि, oh, there's something different about you and me. Right? Till then, there is no understanding in a child saying, मैं male हूँ, आप female हो, आप क्या हो, you know. So I'm saying that the environment, I can say that literally almost every conversation that I would have, you know, with a daughter or with my daughter, I would probably have the same conversations with the guy, right? With the male with the son in the family, because ये conversations ये नहीं है कि listen आपके लिए एक अलग conversation है because you're a girl, you're a boy, let's have a different conversation.
It's the same conversation.
Exactly, and I think everyone needs to be included in this conversation, where I also talk to the girl, where I also talk collectively about what the problems the guy might have. If I'm asking the girl saying that, listen, it's okay to express yourself, okay? If you feel anything, just talk about it. I will tell the exact same thing to the son, saying, listen, you can do the same. So I'm saying that it all starts with the environment of equality that you truly present.
I think
you know?
we all agree on that.
We all agree. In fact, I have 2 daughters, and you know that's the kind of open conversations we have at home. I think it's also important to have a partner. When you, so it's like if you're married, you have a you know, a spouse. It's that leveling is very important. You know, I think what happens in many cases, I know of you know, people, women who have left, is that they've not had a very supporting partner to start with. If you bring a supporting partner into the mix, you know, that's a first step one into this huge battle.
But to look for that support, you have to first be convinced that it is your right to have that equality. The catch is that we are so conditioned to think that it is not our right to have that equality, and on the male side, they're so conditioned to think that the provider role is theirs. There's conditioning on both sides.
I think I personally feel that women now, for some reason, suffer a lot with this problem of I'm not good enough. You know, the low self-worth, the low self-esteem, जो कंडीशनिंग की हम सारी बातें कर रहे हैं, which we are all aware of, वो इतनी subtly हमारे conscious में घुस जाती है ना, that most of us feel we start with इतना मिलेगा तो काफ़ी है, you know, whether it's in terms of
we're grateful for
we are like, oh my God, I'm so lucky. Like if you get a good guy, a decently good guy, we're like, oh my God, he is amazing, right? But why? That's because अरे हमने इतना expect किया था salary, but इससे 5,000 ज़्यादा मिल गए. क्या बात है यार? I'm so grateful. You know, I'm saying that this inherent problem of settling for less because we think we don't deserve more is something that needs to be really, really questioned.
But sorry, you were wanting to say something, and then I'll come to you.
No, I'm just agreeing with all of that, and I think that self-doubt aspect, which all of us spoke about as well, and that goes back to the point I had made earlier, that you you have to start from yourself. Yeah, it's like, you know, when you're in the airplane, right? The first thing when they tell you when the oxygen mask falls, they tell you to put it on first before you put it on your child, right? Be selfish. You have to fix yourself before you try to fix the world, and that is where you got to begin.
See, even our support, like our framing right now, we are saying even if we get a supportive partner, it's great. What we probably should be saying is if we get an equal partner, because what's happening is even if they do 20 or 30% of the house or the baby work, we are like, wow, he's so wonderful,
And
such a decent guy.
advertisements which show like men, like I don't know if there's anyone from advertising here, but there are 2 ads I really have a problem with. One is that there'll be this sort of superwoman in a boardroom. Firstly, her clothes are never crushed. I want this material which is never crushed. She's typically wearing pearls, gleaming, there's sunlight coming in through the window. And she's closing some $1 billion deal, and there's some ghar se phone, haan, aaj gobi matar banaiye. And we're supposed to celebrate that she can say this is what has to be made, but also close $1 billion deal. Then on the flip side, there's some man who will serve some cup of tea, bring some breakfast in bed, and say, what a man.
Wow.
What is So, like,
There was a meme on that you know, oh, the guy is making tea and it's like, what a lovely man. So that's like equal to a great man. And when the woman is making tea, it's like, हाँ तो ठीक है, इसमें क्या नया है? So these are the conditionings that we are growing up with. We are coming just 2 steps forward and being like, even if he does a bit, but the idea is that 30 years from now, when my daughter gets married, or you know, when their granddaughters get married, they should have equal partnership in a way that's only when women can actually achieve true potential at work, because
or
we'll
if
have
they,
someone.
Or if they don't get married, that also.
That also.
I'm with you, Barka, on that.
Yeah. Because I just think that, as the matchmaker told you,
Yes.
so much of what women do are
It should not be the ultimate
singular,
goal. Yes.
singular, focused on that.
Yes.
Okay, I have no idea how we're doing on time, but what I want to do 5 minutes, in the last 5 minutes, and then we'll have some time for questions if you have any, is to talk about your personal journeys. Something you've learned, something you want to unlearn. We were having that conversation, so I'll start with you. Something you wish you had done differently.
Yeah, so I think this one particular moment really defined me a lot. It was early part of my career. I was heading up sales in one of the big corporates, doing very well, extremely successful, you know, every year promotion. So I was this, you know, on a great trajectory of growth. Met my beautiful husband, had a beautiful marriage, had my first beautiful child. And come back from my maternity leave, and I get told, I'm called by my bosses, of course there had to be men, and were told that, you know, in a very nonchalant way, you know, and it's not like they didn't think anything was wrong, is that because you've had a child and because we think that you would want to spend more time with your child and you will have trouble traveling and blah, blah. So I used to head up national sales, and so I was told I was quote unquote demoted to manage one region of West. And the rationale was that, you know, you will need time to be with your child, so you will not be able to work that hard.
And they didn't ask you what you felt
No,
about
no,
this.
none, they just said,
took the decision.
yeah.
That's shocking.
I had just had a baby, and I was, you know, my hormones were all over the place. So I started bawling. I was crying in front of these men and feeling frustrated that why the hell am I crying? You know, I couldn't stop myself. Yeah. And in all of that, I am apologizing to them, saying, I'm sorry, I'm crying, I'm sorry. And their point was that, why are you upset? We're not removing we're not reducing your designation, your salary or anything. Yeah. It's just that we're making it easy for you. Yeah. And so what happened in that moment for me, of course I accepted it, which is my point, like, you know, you never accept what is given, you know, ask for what you really deserve. I had to work that much more harder to then counter my peers, my male peers, who got about 4 to 5 years ahead, you know, movement forward. And I then had to travel more just to prove that I can travel and be a mother too. I had to work late, stay back in the office late, even if I didn't need to, just to prove that I am able to manage both. That to me was pathetic. Yeah. And that is what I would sort of be the letter to my daughter, that don't just accept what is given. You have to fight for what is right.
Absolutely. The industry, how much fairer is it today?
From the time I started, I think there's a lot of change I see
For
in
the
terms
better?
of for the better. Yes,
Okay.
I think we are progressing. And as I was telling you earlier, the fight is not so much about being a male or a female in our industry. It's just the challenges of the industry, you know, and how you sort of navigate through it.
But
right.
is there something you wish you'd done differently?
Or
Or something that really defined you?
I think what has truly defined me is the kind of roles I have picked up. I mean, it took a lot of patience out of me. It took sometimes I would sit at home not finding the right thing.
Are there certain roles you would never do because they go against your grain?
I am slowly, I think I'm slowly becoming very open to the idea of exploring a lot of stuff that I personally do not identify with. I think that's a part
But
of my
that's
journey.
acting. That's acting, right?
Yeah.
But are they like, for example, I would never collaborate with a fairness product. Like I'm just giving an example from my life.
Yeah.
I understand that, you know, the very definition of acting is to step out of your comfort zone and do personas.
Okay.
But are there things that you find ethically problematic, right? Like,
Yeah, I think this whole fairness thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I have done that in the past, and I am in general with advertising, especially as you said, because I'm an actor, I can still keep that aside and
Correct.
do it. But when it comes to advertising and selling a particular product, I have even if it's to do with Instagram deals and partnerships or whatever, something as simple as that. I am very mindful of, do I actually like this? Would I actually use it?
Yeah.
You know, if I don't use it, if I can't use it and I'm not sure of using it, I don't want to promote it, kind of a thing. Yeah.
Interesting. Last word to you. Something that you would want to do differently or has really shaped you?
You know, when you read these interviews in the media and when you hear an actor's journey, you often say, I was spotted in a coffee shop and then things happened, and I was spotted here and then things happened. That's not true. So what I learned much later, which I wish I would have learned earlier, is don't wait for an opportunity. You know, in the waiting period, you feel you'll be spotted and all of that. You still have to vocalize your desire and put yourself out there and let the other person know that this is something you'd like to do and achieve. And that's when they start actually seeing it. And that is something I probably wish I would have done, wanted to do early on, which I did much later, is just grab that opportunity. Ask for that opportunity. And I was amazed at how it just walks to you once you ask for it.
Yeah, I think that is something we can all agree on. Don't just sit there. The apple won't fall from the tree. Go and pluck the apple if you need to, quite literally. That is why you wrote, I guess, Letters to the Daughters of Tomorrow. And I hope there'll be a sequel that also talks about sons. We will, I think, close on that note, unless there are questions from the floor, which I will hand back.
Wow.
But before you pick up the questions, let's have a round of applause for our wonderful
Yes, a
panel.
big round of applause, everyone,
And
for all the stimulating conversations. And I must say, thank you very much for all these conversations and such wonderful thoughts, because even being a man, I was constantly thinking of all those things you were speaking of. I'm sure the audience also has all these thoughts in their heads. Can I have a show of hands? I'll move.
First of all, my compliments to each one of you. I've thoroughly enjoyed every aspect of the discussion. And I'm just taking a cue from what Chirag said. I was just wondering why we didn't have any males on the panel. Because we need to have them in the conversation.
Because we think they are lesser than us.
And one more thing that I have two grown-up sons. And one of the challenges that I faced as a mother was that I didn't know what it is for a boy growing up, like a boy, like a male child. I didn't know, I couldn't answer many of the questions that they had. So I feel the partner, the father, has to play a very important role in the bringing up of a son, which is lacking, I think, because mostly it's mothers who are responsible for bringing up
To answer your first question, I've been on far too many panels where I'm the only woman, and I'm very happy when I see women on the panel. And this, I must say, I'm sorry, but it's kind of our day, so I really wanted to make sure that women...
I'm sorry, it's your event, but I tell you, I come from an industry where even on like issues that are about women, you'll have 7 men talking. So I think it's okay. They're called manels. So I think we've countered that today for once. They're called manels. They are called manels. So.
That's true, that's true. So I think today was really a day where we wanted to hear from the girls or a woman's perspective, because everyone here has had such different exposure from such varied fields, and you will be surprised that still the common denominator is pretty much similar. And as for sons, I think probably a guy would be able to, understand that better, and maybe we'll have someone write Letter to Sons of Tomorrow.
I think we've already given you your idea for your sequel.
So I think my question was similar, letters to the sons of tomorrow, because I have 2 sons. And thank you so much for all these discussions because I could relate to each and everything. It's not a question. I just wanted to share that I could relate to the authenticity part. I could relate that parents are saying that, okay, get married and do whatever you want to do it later. So, which I have faced personally. But, and I also faced that, okay, you have a supporting husband, that's why you could work. So, thank you so much for writing this, Shamoli. And also, if you want to write latest to the Sons of Tomorrow, then I can co-write with you. we don't need a father to write it. We can write it too.
No, you're absolutely right. I think the idea behind the book was exactly this, of being able to sit and have these discussions out in the open, because this pretty much has been, you know, put under the carpet for very long. And again, these are topics which are very hushed in the Indian society. So I'm very glad we could create that mahol to have that discussion.
Hi, I'm Rashi. What I've noticed is that we are today as women in 2024. We have moved forward with our thoughts, but a lot of men across the world are still back probably in 1990s or even before that. We are writing letters to the daughters of tomorrow. We are talking about how women are progressing, but how are we going to bridge this gap between the thought of the men of today or of tomorrow and between where we as women are heading? Because if that gap is not bridged, then anything we may ask for, anything we may do is futile. So if any of you have any thoughts on how we're going to bridge this gap?
So I think one of the things that I say is that we are the transition generation of women, which means that the working women now is hopefully in majority in some time, because earlier even sons were used to having, you know, women home, and working women was a minority. Hopefully in the next 20-30 years that will change. One of the things that women have to do is educate their sons and sensitize them about what it means to be a working mother, for example, because when that son grows up, it's going to be very normal for him to have a working wife or a working partner. So I think it literally starts at home when you see that equality having at home. So there is a lot of hope on this generation to kind of cross that barrier. Like someone like you who has 2 sons has that discussion with the sons, and they see their mother working, stepping out, and not being, you know, Bollywood mein it's fantasized that maa ka haath ka khana, maa. And I was like, my kids are not going to be like maa ke haath ka khana because I'm not home to make it. So, but that will change with this generation. They'll probably look for something else. They'll probably be inspired by the ambition that you have and maybe look for that in the partner. So a lot lies on the shoulders of this generation of women, really.
I think I just want to add something to that. I think the answer lies in just a very simple thing: communication and conversation. It could be the simplest thing in the world and it could be the toughest thing in the world, but honestly that's the key to dealing with any of this.
Well, so we have a lot of questions in the audience. We'll have last 2 taken if it's good for the audience.
Yeah, we have some men raising finally raising their hands.
I have,
Yes, hi.
one comment to make. It's essentially to answer what Barkha had asked. That, you know, why is it that the percentage of women working is so low? I think if you look at the country, most of the families, many of the families are very traditional, very, very conventional, and, you know, many of them think that it's not right for the girls to work. And I know of many, many cases. For example, when we were running a company, there was one employee, and she was very good in designing, you know, some work, but within 2-3 months she stopped coming. And we kept on asking, and she said, my husband, my in-laws and all have told me not to work. And she didn't even resign, and, you know, because she was still hoping that she'll be able to convince them. And this is one reason that, you know, so many years of conditioning and acceptance that the women shouldn't work, the girls should not work. The second one is that the girls lack a role model. I'll give an example. If there are women and mothers in the family who are already working, doctors, teachers, professionals, corporate executives, the chances are more than 90 or 95% that those girls will work. because they have a role model in the family. So essentially, I try to answer.
I agree with you.
Which is what
So we
Shamali
have
said. This
someone
is
here. We have this gentleman.
sorry, just commenting on Sir's point here. That just which I think what Shamali mentioned, that that this is the transition generation. So if our kids are seeing us as role models, there are higher chances of that generation continue to being working women.
Hi, I'm Tarun. I just want to add an answer to Rashi as well. How do we bridge the gap is what you asked. So I am a mother to a 12-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. And I completely agree with your point of yin and yang. It's about finding the balance. It's not about the gender that you belong to. Whether it's us as individuals or whether it's our kids, we never differentiate. We ensure that, equal opportunities are given to both. We ensure equal manners and equal respect and everything is given to both. It's not about you being a girl or you being a boy. And to answer your question, Rashi, I am around a lot of women who have preteen boys, who are being educated about periods, who are being educated about respect to women, who are being educated about equal opportunities. So I think we may just have a generation of men who are way more sensitive than the women we'll bring out.
I wish I was born in that generation, but too late.
मैम मेरा सवाल आपसे है कि जब भी कोई विमेन सक्सेसफुल होती है या टॉप पोजीशन में काम करती है तो कहीं ना कहीं कई जो सोसाइटी के लोग होते हैं वो कहते हैं कि अरे ये तो इसके वजह से पहुंच चुकी है.
किसकी वजह से?
कोई मैन के वजह से.
और
रिसेंटली सुब्रमण्यम स्वामी ने भी कहा था कि कंगना रनावत इज अ फेवरेट ऑफ मोदी, दैट इज व्हाई शी गेट द टिकट्स. हाउ यू सी दिस काइंड ऑफ स्टेटमेंट पीपल मेक्स?
I see it as utter bullshit. मुझे लगता है कि ये लोगों की छोटी सोच है. जितना वो समझते हैं, जितना वो सोच सकते हैं, जितनी उनकी क्षमता है उसके हिसाब से वो चीज़ों को देखते हैं. तो it's nothing that I am affected by, and I think every woman who is out there and trying to do something with her life should not be.
Well said. Thank you. Well, I think, sorry, the host.
On that note.
On that note, we feel free to have another round of applause for the great panel.
I'm sure the book is going to be stimulating a lot more thoughts of this kind. So, ladies and gentlemen, as you had a big round of applause, let us to the Daughters of Tomorrow. We'd like to felicitate our panelists for this evening, and thank you. Thank you very much. Can we have Shamali, please? Would you do the honors?
So it's my pleasure to call upon some very special people to felicitate our panelists for today. I want to call upon the chairperson of One Take Media, Ms. Shelly Khera, and the founder and CEO of One Take Media, Mr. Anil Khera, which also happen to be my mom and dad, and they're totally surprised they're doing this. And we often don't get the opportunity to say this, but because of the environment that you have created, I've been able to write this. So thank you so much.
बुक इज अमेजिंग. मैंने फर्स्ट पेज
पढ़ी आपने बुक?
यस, मैंने फर्स्ट इंट्रोडक्शन ही पढ़ा है अभी तक. लास्ट के इंट्रोडक्शन से पता चल जाता है उसका ब्रीफ ऑफ समझ
जी,
क्या है.
जी.
सो मैं आपसे जानना चाहूँगी, जब आप ये बुक लिख रहे थे तो क्या थॉट्स था, और आज की जनरेशन के या आज की वुमन के लिए क्या किस थॉट्स के रिलेटेड आपने?
मेरे हिसाब से हम जिस एनवायरनमेंट में पलते हैं, स्पेशली डॉटर्स, बहुत ही इम्पॉर्टेंट है. तो ये बुक दो पर्सपेक्टिव से लिखी गई है. एक कि जो हम वो एनवायरनमेंट देते हैं अपने बच्चों को, अपनी लड़कियों को, सिमिलर होना चाहिए जो हम अपने बेटे को देते हैं, नंबर 1. एंड नंबर 2, ये वो लड़कियों से भी बात कर रहा है, बिकॉज एक इंटरनल और एक्सटर्नल चेंज होना बहुत ज़रूरी है. तो जैसे कीर्ति ने भी कहा कि आपको अपने अंदर का कॉन्फिडेंस बना के रखना है, जगा के रखना है, और हम कितना भी बता लें, एवरी गर्ल विल हैव हर ओन जर्नी. सो कीर्ति, वांट टू ऐड टू दैट?
हाँ, मतलब यार बहुत क्लियर है टाइटल से, लेटर्स टू द डॉटर्स ऑफ टुमारो. कोशिश यही है शामली की, थ्रू द रिसर्च एंड थ्रू आवर ओन एक्सपीरियंसेस एंड द एक्सपीरियंसेस ऑफ अदर्स, कि कि हम कैसे आने वाली जनरेशन के लिए उनकी जो जर्नी है, उनकी जो जद्दोजहद है, थोड़ी आसान कर सकते हैं. हम किस तरह से उनको अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस शेयर करके उनको थोड़ा सा गाइड कर सकते हैं. क्योंकि मैं मानती हूँ कि हम सबकी लाइफ में चैलेंजेस आते हैं, अलग अलग तरह से आते हैं, लेकिन हम एक दूसरे की अगर किसी तरह से मदद कर सकें तो आई थिंक उस हिसाब से ये जो बुक है ये बहुत ज़रूरी है.
मैम, आपसे बात करूँ तो इस जनरेशन की बात करें तो जेन जी जनरेशन बोला जा रहा है इस जनरेशन के लोगों को. तो कहीं ना कहीं इस जनरेशन की गर्ल्स, फीमेल या मेल की बात करूँ तो फिल्मों से कुछ ज़्यादा प्रेरित हो रहे हैं.
लोग हमेशा से बहुत प्रेरित होते हैं. यहाँ बस ज़्यादा दिख जाता है क्योंकि सोशल मीडिया है तो बहुत शेयर कर लेते हैं, फीडबैक बहुत जल्दी आ जाती है. लेकिन तो हाँ, क्या बोल रही थी आप?
प्रेरित होते हैं, और आज की जनरेशन की लड़कियों की बात करें तो बहुत ज़्यादा फ्रीडम में पसंद करती है रहना. बट कहीं ना कहीं अगर हम पुराने ज़माने के ख्यालातों की बात करें वो भी कहीं ना कहीं इम्पोर्टेंट है लाइफ में रहना.
तो मतलब आप कह रही हैं कि ये स्मोकिंग, ड्रिंकिंग, तो देखिए मैं साड़ी पहन के आई हूँ, लेकिन मैं आज की लड़की भी हूँ. मैं घूमने भी जाती हूँ, मैं ड्रिंक भी करती हूँ जब मेरा मन करता है. सबके लिए कुछ थोड़ा न्यूज़ मिल गई है. सो मुझे लगता है कि हर चीज़ आप कर सकते हैं जब तक आपको पता है कि आपकी लिमिट्स क्या हैं और कितना आपके लिए सही है, आप कितना हैंडल कर सकते हैं. तो ये चाहे पहले की औरत हो, आज की औरत हो, आज की लड़कियां हों, मैंने कहा ना, जो आपकी चॉइसेस हैं वो आपके सामने हैं, और जो उसकी लिमिट्स हैं और जो उसके कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस हैं वो आपको अपने लिए खुद तय करने पड़ेंगे.
Do you have more questions for Kirti? तो अभी आप इस I think.
No, I have a question for you.
Okay.
आपने बुक लिखी है लेटर टू द डॉटर्स ऑफ टुमारो.
Yes.
बट व्हेन आर यू राइटिंग टू द लेटर टू द सन ऑफ टुमारो? बिकॉज यू नो
लुक्स लाइक टुनाइट.
Looks like it.
बिकॉज बहुत बार क्या होता है ना जी, वुमेन आर टोटली एम्पावर्ड, लाइक करियर करो, ये करो, एंड मैन आर ऑल्सो, बट बहुत बार इमोशनली तुम रो मत, तुम ये मत करो, मत करो.
नहीं, आप बहुत सही हो. हमारे जो बॉयज़ हैं वो एक अलग प्रेशर से गुजरते हैं जिसके बारे में हमने आज बात की नहीं है. जैसे हम ब्रेड विनर की बात कर रहे थे, हम यहाँ पे बात कर रहे हैं कि लड़कियों को वो राइट दिया जाए कि वो ब्रेड विन करे. यहाँ पे लड़कों को वो प्रेशर होता है कि उन्हें वो करना है. सो दैट्स अ डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ प्रेशर टू बी इन. सो 100% एक लेटर टू द सन्स भी होना चाहिए. ये मैं लिख पाई आसानी से क्योंकि मैं खुद एक डॉटर रह चुकी हूँ, और मेरी अपनी पर्सनल जर्नी से जितनी वुमेन से मैंने बात की है, आई कुड इम्बाइब ऑल ऑफ दैट एंड पुट इट टुगेदर. सन्स इज़ समथिंग दैट वी कैन सर्टनली वर्क ऑन, बट एंड आई फील वील हैव टू, क्योंकि शी इज़ राइट कि अभी विमेन इतने एम्पावर्ड हो जाएंगे कि समवेयर वील हैव टू हैव अ डिफरेंट एजुकेशन एंड कॉन्वर्सेशन विद सन्स. सो मे बी सम टाइम सून.
अच्छा, आई ऑल्सो सपोर्ट फेमिनिज्म, बट आई डोंट सपोर्ट टॉक्सिक फेमिनिज्म. कि बिन मतलब का रोड पे कोई दिखा, बस देख रहा तो मार दिया, दैट्स अ रॉन्ग थिंग. तो आप जो लेटर लिख रहे हो टू द डॉटर्स ऑफ टुमारो,
मैंने नहीं लिखा है, इन्होंने लिखा है.
हाँ, मतलब यू आर सपोर्टिंग इट, यू सपोर्टिंग.
आई मीन आई सपोर्ट द कॉज ऑफ इट. यस.
क्या मिसयूज होने के चांसेस है?
और इसको लेके क्या आप लोगों की, क्या आप भी फेमिनिस्ट है, लेकिन आदमियों के बारे में आप लोगों की क्या सोच है? आजकल महिलाएं भी गलत फॉल्स रेप क्या चीज लगा रही हैं.
यार ये महिलाओं कि क्या तुम किस ट्रैक पे हो मुझे बताओ.
See, this is करेक्ट है आपकी. See, that's the, देखो आप कोई भी चीज़ ना एज अ क्रिएटिव आर्टिस्ट, अब ऑथर भी एक क्रिएटिव आर्टिस्ट ही होता है इन अ वे. जैसे ये मूवीज़ बना के जब ये बाहर रखते हैं, हर एक का एक अपना पर्सपेक्टिव, एक नज़रिया होता है, राइट. अब ये बुक एक सिंगल पर्सपेक्टिव से लिखी गई है कि हमें वुमेन को एम्पावर करना है और फेमिनिज्म को थोड़ा पॉजिटिवली लेना है, बिकॉज यू आर राइट, there is toxic feminism, but again it's coming from a place जहाँ पे उसको लग रहा है उसको उसके rights नहीं मिले. Yes, उसका इस्तेमाल में भी गलत तरीके से कभी कभार होता है, but if we go to the root cause, we will find that empathy in our heart कि भाई इसके साथ शायद गलत हो रहा है, इसलिए ये रोल में जा रही है. जैसे क्वीन बी सिंड्रोम की बात हम कर रहे थे, जहाँ पे कहा जाता है, एक रिसर्च है कि विमेन बॉसेस विमेन कलीग्स से ज़्यादा रूड होते हैं या उनको हेल्प नहीं करते हैं, वो मेल कलीग्स को ज़्यादा हेल्प करते हैं. अब ये बोलने जाए तो काफ़ी जजिंग वाली रिसर्च है, लेकिन इसका अंडरलाइंग मीनिंग ये है कि विमेन बॉसेस आर इनसिक्योर, क्योंकि इतने कम लीडर्स हैं एट द टॉप, तो उन्हें लगता है अगर मैं और वुमेन को हेल्प करूँगी तो ये मेरी पोजीशन ले लेगी. इट कम्स फ्रॉम दैट साइकोलॉजी, सो वी नीड टू चेंज दैट. सो योर राइट, टॉक्सिक फेमिनिज्म हो रहा है, ये बुक उसी को आइडेंटिफाई करके बोल रही है कि भाई हमें चेंज करना है.
मुझे पर्सनली लगता है कि हमें बिल्कुल वेमेन को एम्पावर करना है, लेकिन आदमियों को नीचे दिखा कर नहीं. दैट इज़ समथिंग दैट आई डू नॉट अग्री विद, आई डू नॉट, मैं उसको मैं प्रमोट नहीं करती हूँ. मैं औरतों को एम्पावर करना चाहती हूँ, लेकिन आई थिंक हमें लगता है कि मर्द और औरत सब साथ में है यार. ये एक की औरतें सिर्फ अपने आप में नहीं लड़ाई कर सकती. हमें वी नीड मेन बाय आवर साइड in our lives to make this happen and to really form a society जहाँ पे ये बातें ही ना हो, एक point के बाद. Thank you so much.